Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name's Kayleigh Swift, I'm the Director here at NB Property Law, and we've got our guest Sacha Millar, who's the Queensland General Manager for WBP Group. So we're here to talk today about property valuations and AI and what you need to know before you actually purchase your property. So what we're all about here at NB Property Law is we offer personalised proactive advice to minimise the risk and take the stress out of your next property transaction or estate planning matter. We're more than just a team of legal experts. We're dedicated problem solvers committed to creating personalised solutions to guide you forward. From residential to commercial property law concerns, we're here to provide you the clarity and guidance you need. And myself, Kayleigh, I'm one of the directors here at NB Property Law. And as I mentioned before, we've got Sacha Millar. She's, as I said, the General Manager of WBP Group in Queensland. So WBP Group is a national property valuation firm providing residential and commercial valuations and advice. They've been operating for over 30 years, and WBP Group has national coverage with offices in all major capitals. So Sacha Millar personally is the General Manager of Queensland. She oversees the operations across the southeast Queensland and the northern New South Wales. And together with her husband, Jonathan Millar, Sacha has owned and operated a valuation practice for 18 years, building a reputation for client-focused service in the valuation industry. So what we're going to speak today about in this webinar is we're going to go through a bit of an industry overview, which Sacha will take you through. She's going to talk about the types of valuations and their role. She'll provide a bit of a comparison table, and then we're going to go through the risks of relying on the third-party valuations. She'll be talking about maintaining data quality in the age of AVMs, and I'll be speaking about the best practice for buyers and investors. So we're going to start with Sacha taking us through a bit of an industry overview. So I'll hand over to you now, Sacha.
Thank you, Kayleigh. I appreciate that. So I should clarify, I am not a valuer. I married one. But as Kayleigh mentioned, I've owned and operated a valuation firm for the past 18 years. So most people don't realise to become a certified practicing valuer, it's a 3-year degree. And in Queensland, this is the Bachelor of Property Economics. It's a 2-year cadetship and then sitting professional interviews. So it's quite a process. And when we started our business, I had 2 babies. Hence, I never became a valuer. But let's chat about the AI in the property industry. So the property valuation industry is undergoing transformation driven by technology and AI. And while these advancements offer speed and convenience, they also introduce new risks and consideration for buyers, investors, and lenders. So in my role at WBP Group, I've seen how our clients are implementing a hybrid of AI-generated automated price estimates and engaging a certified practicing valuer, depending on the risk appetite, the nature of the property, and the property's value. So the property industry was among the first to adopt AI and technology for automated price estimates, which are now commonly available for free on websites like realestate.com.au. And these tools provide quick general property estimates based on large data sets, and they play a role in saving time and costs when the situation's deemed low risk. However, it's important to be aware of the risks of relying on these models for pre-purchase due diligence or complex or legal matters, and what factors these automated systems might miss. So I'll also touch on the concern that as the use of automated valuations increase and full inspection valuations decline, what this means for the quality of data that future AVMs may be relying on. Okay, so let's talk about the types of valuations and their role. So we've got automated valuation models, AVMs. Now, these are data algorithms using AI and market trends to provide an estimate of value. They're fast and low cost, used by banks for low risk loans and available for free on many websites, as I said. Now, these are best for single family homes in the mortgage belt where many similar homes in the same area are transacting regularly. However, they're not so reliable for unique properties or prestige high value, or properties in hilly areas where some houses may have views and others in the same suburb may be flood prone, or where there are non-standard features, so steep driveways or high transmission lines, busy streets with difficult access. Next, we've got a desktop by a certified practicing valuer, and this is where a CPV provides an assessment without a physical inspection, relying on verified data and their market experience. So our valuers are going into 5 or 6 properties every day, and they're seeing new contracts signed every day. The limitations, though, include there's no physical inspection, and so may miss some internal risks, internal issues, etc. Things like, is the downstairs area to legal height, and is the granny flat kitchen compliant with the building code? Next, you've got SmartVal. Now, this is a relatively new product. It's been in the market for a few years now. It's a desktop valuation by a qualified valuer with a phone call to the homeowner to verify internal details. So there's also a digital tool which enables homeowners to capture property details with geocoded photos verifying the location, and this will provide information regarding renovations and views, etc. Now, it's an insured product used by the banks and provides more reliability than a desktop, and it's suitable for standard properties but still lacks the internal inspection, so can miss factors which may affect value. The next one is a curbside valuation. So a qualified valuer views the property and surrounds from the street without an internal inspection. So the valuer can observe the street appeal and more readily and identify external risks. As the property is assessed from the street, internal issues are missed. And finally, you've got the full inspection valuation, where a valuer conducts an internal inspection of the property and prepares an IVS compliant valuation report. So IVS standing for International Valuation Standards. Now, this is the most accurate and it's compliant with all legal standards, essential for legal purposes, an important part of pre-purchase due diligence. So next, we've got a comparison table, and this is showing the various valuation types, comparing their speed of completion, cost, and where they provide the best value and the best outcome. You can see here the banks are utilising all forms of these valuation types. However, when it comes to valuations for legal purposes, a full valuation is required. So next we'll chat about the risks of relying on third-party valuations. Most people are aware if a real estate agent provides you with a building and pest report before purchasing a property, this has been prepared for and addressed to the vendor. So this means as a purchaser legally you can't rely on this report or hold the building inspector responsible for any issues you may face down the track. And this is the same for valuations prepared for a third party. So property valuation is not just about satisfying bank requirements. It's a critical part of the due diligence as a buyer or investor. Relying solely on the lending process can leave you exposed to risks, and there are a couple of issues here to consider. First of all, being timing. So the bank valuation is completed after the contract is signed. By then, it's too late to renegotiate if the valuation comes in lower than expected, potentially leaving you with a funding shortfall or a higher LVR. Also, industry guidelines prohibit the release of mortgage security valuation reports to third parties, including owners or prospective buyers. So if the valuer has identified some concerns or risks, you might never know. Also, some lenders are increasingly relying on AVMs and may forego a valuation when the LVR, loan to value ratio, is low. And some lenders may accept the contract price and skip the valuation entirely. So it's important the purchaser really should understand the true market value of the property they're about to purchase. So next, I just want to chat about the importance of maintaining data quality in the age of AVMs and AI. So the data for AVMs comes from predominantly 2 sources. We've got sale prices of properties sold recently, and then property valuations gathered by aggregators like Cotality, which was CoreLogic. So technology is improving efficiency, but it's reducing the frequency of full inspection valuations. AI models depend on high quality data, which is compromised when there are fewer full inspection valuations being conducted. So AI needs reliable data, and full inspection valuations provide detailed, accurate data essential for training these AI models. So with fewer inspections, AI relies more and more on less detailed sources like previous AVMs and desktop assessments, which might miss critical property features. So over time, there's a concern this will lead to less reliable AI-generated property estimates as models fail to account for factors that only physical inspection would reveal, such as structural problems, renovations, or unique attributes that affect market value. Also, As full inspection valuations decline, the property data ecosystem is increasingly relying on the sales data entered by real estate agents when marketing the property. But this may overlook building and compliance issues. So some examples I've seen are counting a downstairs room as a bedroom when it doesn't meet legal height requirements, or advertising a granny flat kitchen when that kitchen actually doesn't meet the building code. So other things like calling a powder room a bathroom because, it has to have a shower to be a bathroom, or a lock-up carport being called a garage. Agents are focusing on marketing and selling properties because this is their job. They're not so much focused on strict adherence to building codes. So I've seen the impact of this when a client's gone to refinance and our valuations uncovered the non-compliant kitchen downstairs. So the bank would not refinance until the property had been rectified and met all building code requirements. This meant that kitchen had to be removed. So this came as a surprise to the client. He wasn't aware of the value, and he wasn't aware of any valuation being completed by the bank at the time of purchase. So this wasn't picked up. Perhaps if it was, he could have renegotiated a reduction in price at the time to have the property rectified. So a common concern at the moment is that a decline in full inspection valuations will weaken the property data ecosystem and undermine the future accuracy of AI-driven property estimates. So all in all, the talk of the industry is that best practice calls for maintaining a baseline of full inspections to ensure robust property data for the industry into the future. So in conclusion, I think it's important that people understand the limitations of each valuation type and use them appropriately. And before signing a contract of sale when purchasing a property, in addition to seeking legal advice, home buyers and investors should consider engaging a valuer who's an expert in their local area, who's looking after their best interests, to fully understand what the property's worth and uncover any other potential risks. Because if you're spending $800,000 to $1 million to buy a home in Southeast Queensland, you don't want to leave your property purchase due diligence to chance by relying on an AVM or relying on a third party. Get independent advice that protects your interests. Thank you, Kayleigh.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Sacha. So much to think about when it comes to valuing, and it's interesting to understand actually how AI incorporates into some of the valuations that are being done, but understand obviously the risks with that. So definitely important, obviously, for clients that are engaging you, making sure that they've actually got a proper full valuation done so that they understand things that are actually going on and take into account some of those unique features that you mentioned. So really appreciate your insight. Thank you for that. So I'm going to talk now a little bit more about AI and the law and why the human touch still matters. So there is currently no legislation in place in Australia that regulates the use of AI. It's still, a relatively new concept here in Australia. So we haven't actually got one single piece of legislation that actually, dictates, what the law is around AI. It is indirectly, however, regulated by legislation such as the Competition and Consumer Act, which is a 2010 piece of Commonwealth legislation, and another Commonwealth piece of legislation is the Copyright Act from 1968, and also the Privacy Act, which was come into effect in 1988. So the use of AI in practice must be considered carefully and only undertaken with appropriate guardrails. So AI as a tool. So obviously with the good also comes the bad. So to start with, I'm going to talk about the good. Why AI can be seen as a good tool in in the legal industry, but obviously many other industries, like I said, like Sacha mentioned, valuers are starting to use it, and there's many other industries that are jumping on board and using AI as a tool. So the good points of AI is it can be used for content generation. I think many industries are using that to help them, draft certain articles, which is probably where we most use it in our firm. Help us with, blog posts and things like that. We'll give it the ideas and what we want to, some key points to include, and it can help us to do a first draft. Obviously, we've still got to check over the information that it spits out, because some of it can be, outdated laws and legislations or cases that it's referring to, but it is a good starting point just to get some words down on paper. For property in particular, some industries, they're using it for virtual staging of property. So real estate agents, they're using it to, come up with these images of the property to put pieces of furniture in there to make it look good to obviously a buyer. AI is also good for the analysis of large sets of data. So, that's probably more the finances teams, they might be using it to, go ahead and scan, you know, large data sets to come up with certain things that they're needing to pick out. It can also be used, you know, when you are looking to purchase a property, you could be using AI to help, you know, tailor those search results. So letting it know, you know, you're looking for something 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double garage, and it can refine those results for you. So, you know, you're putting in your desired property requirements. It's going to filter through all the properties that are available in the particular area you're looking for to make sure that it meets your requirements. Some of the other good things that AI has been used for in our firm is legal research. So often, you know, we've got to research particular matters that we are not as familiar with or need to be updated with. So, you know, we'll ask AI either question and it'll bring back a raft of different results. Again, still got to cross-check all that information because it's not always accurate. The translation of a large volume of records to help determine what documents should be sent to an accredited translator. That's used by more legal firms that are doing like a lot of litigation matters. Content generation, which I mentioned before, also document reviewing. So this is sometimes, we personally don't use it, but some property law firms will be using it where it's getting it to review, for example, a contract of sale or purchase to scan through that document and essentially draft that initial letter to the client, you know, picking out the key dates and things like that. AI is being used by, you know, property law firms for that nature. Like I said, we personally don't do that at the moment. You know, it still takes just long to kind of go through it and make sure it's all correct anyway. It can also be used to draft or summarize transaction documents. So, you know, some property law firms, again, will be using it to review, you know, leases, which, you know, sometimes you'll have a 40-page lease document and it will be reviewing that lease document to come up with the summary of the main clauses within the lease to, you know, dictate to client and outline to the client. So, you know, again, those firms will still be needing to cross-check the lease with what AI has actually spit out as the review and still make sure that it actually picked up the main things. So, you know, there's some good points of it. It can be a good starting point in law firms in particular. In our firm, like we still do a lot of the groundwork. We don't rely on it too much other than for some content generation because there's still, you know, issues that pop up with AI and, you know, sometimes it is just quicker to do it yourself. Whereas, you know, some other firms are using it a bit more and more as time goes on and it evolves. Some of the bad points, I suppose, though, to outline with AI and using it as a tool within the business is a few examples we've got here where a real estate's used it in New South Wales to generate an actual ad using ChatGPT. However, the ad stated that the house was near 2 schools that didn't actually exist. So the ACCC in this case said that anyone generating advertising material with AI must check to ensure it doesn't contain false, misleading, inaccurate material, as this could be a breach of the consumer law legislation. So a homeowner, another example was a homeowner was looking into knocking down their property and rebuilding. So during the design phase and to help them actually decide what they could build, they asked ChatGPT to find out the local council requirements. So when they did actually go and spend money and a lot of time to determine the best use of the space, they found out that the expert told them they could actually build 3 meters closer to the boundary, whereas what they, you know, looked at and helped design using ChatGPT, you know, they didn't realize they could actually build that close to the boundary. So, you know, sometimes it's big investments of money, you know, homeowners are doing. You need to sometimes still pay for the advice and the experience from the professionals rather than relying on that AI tool, because it is simply just a tool. It shouldn't be used as, you know, the final definite answer for things. So another situation, you know, where it could be seen as a bad thing was in a recent decision in a Victorian court where a solicitor down there tendered a list of authorities to the judge. However, the judge nor the associates could actually locate the authorities list. So it was basically discovered that that solicitor had used AI to generate the authorities list, but failed to actually look over the list before tendering to the court. So as I mentioned earlier, it can be used as a tool for us lawyers in the outset, but you still need to be double checking, cross-referencing, you know, the information that AI is spitting out, because it's not always accurate, it's not always up to date, and there are issues with it. An example in the USA was there was a company that was found to have breached anti-discrimination laws by using an AI program that basically automatically filtered out female applicants over 55 and male applicants over 60. So the bias in the AI system can lead to potential breaches of the anti-discrimination laws to statistical basis in the underlying training data. So, we have an employment team here at NB Law Group, and I know, discrimination is a big thing that they come across, with their clients' work. So if they had a company that was recruiting people and they were automatically striking them out because of age, they could have a big case on their hands. So, like I said, you still need to be checking things that AI is doing. You can't just rely on the final results that it gives you. So AI as a legal practitioners and our ethical duties that we have to the court and how that's seen. So, like I said, AI is a tool, but it doesn't replace us as a competent person, a competent solicitor. We have the fundamental understandings of the law and the facts of a matter. So we still need to uphold that ethical duty we have as solicitors. So as solicitors, we're still responsible for the content and must ensure that it is correct and does not contain any errors. We can't just simply, ask AI to review, a property law contract and, explain to the client what the key dates are, what the key terms are, and send that off to the client. If law firms are using AI, it simply needs to be as a tool and still needs to be double checking everything that AI is doing. It should really just be the starting point to get some words on paper. It's important to remember that AI is not the provider of the service, and while an error in the technical system may explain errors, but it doesn't absolve a law firm from negligent client service delivery or misleading a third party. We still have a duty to our client where we're charging them for a service. They're not simply getting AI to draft documents and review documents for them. We still need that experience that we have as solicitors to be thoroughly checking, what AI is potentially giving us as guidance to help with the matter. So confidentiality when it comes to AI. So who actually has access to the data? So is there, an express guarantee of confidentiality within the user agreement? So there's a range of different AI programs out there. And if you are choosing to use one, you need to be checking what confidentiality agreement exists with that particular program that you're using for AI. What or how will the data you load into the system be protected? Is the provider allowed to resell the data that you're giving it? So if you're putting in certain, details about what you're looking for, for example, for a property purchase, can they then on-sell that data to a buyer's agency who might use that information to help, purchase your property? Can you anonymize the data to offer an additional layer of protection? This all comes down to what AI system you're using and what their user agreement actually says, so what you're signing up for when you start using that AI program. So it's important that any AI tools that you do use does not get misused in terms of access to that confidential data. So for law firms that would be using it, they have confidentiality obligations to their clients. They need to make sure that that obligation is protected, and it to be ensuring that appropriate risk assessment has been undertaken before you're actually using any AI tool. So transparency and disclosure. So if you used AI to virtually stage a property or alter a photo to disclose it, so there's many agents that are doing this currently, they should be actually using AI to generate images or content. It's best to actually ensure that there is human involvement and it's not just merely inputting questions or prompts to ensure that the images and contents are protected by copyright laws. So they don't, they want to still, be having, some human involvement where they've, put a few things that are their own, and they've not just completely outsourced the photo and all the images from AI, because, there could be issues with copyright laws then. What to do if you are using AI. So, as I said, there's plenty of people that are using AI now or planning or intending to use it in the near distant future. So if you are planning on using AI in your business, you need to basically be setting up a framework for the risk management. Like I said, first thing you'd be checking is what is the user agreement with a particular AI company you're looking to use, and confidentiality obligations that company has. Also should be considering the 8 Australian AI ethic principles, which was published by the Australian government in 2019. As I said, there's no one piece of legislation that governs the use of AI in Australia currently, but these ethic principles that have been published in 2019 are a good starting point. So who will be responsible for AI and any damage or harm it causes? It will depend on the area of law and what the circumstances were, but it may come down to common law and the principal duty of care that arises. So for example, you know, as I said, as lawyers, we have a duty of care to our clients to make sure we're properly informing them. So if, you know, a lawyer's used AI and it's given wrong information, that doesn't come down to the AI tool that the lawyers use. It comes down to the lawyer. They've got that duty of care to the client, and they're the ones that should be properly advising that client on the law. So AI then, and the need for a human touch. So AI can detect patterns in data, but it is only as good as the data is given and fed. So, you know, AI, you need to be providing that information and data to get the right answers. If you just give it minimal information and expect you're going to get a proper comprehensive answer, it's not going to be the case. So AI can often overlook the human factors such as the community and what makes a suburb more desirable if you're looking for a property purchase. Like, you know, you just putting in 4-bed, 2-bath, 2 garage, you know, if you're wanting to be part of a certain community or wanting a really leafy suburb, AI's not going to spit out those property. You need to, you know, give it that information, and it doesn't have the human factor. It's not going to know if it's a nice community and, you know, things like that. While AI is a powerful tool, but it must be combined with the expert advice. So you need to be doing your own research and on-the-ground inspections to be undertaken to ensure the best results. So while it can give you a few properties that may be within your search criteria, you really still need to be going out and actually doing that on the ground inspection, you know, having a look through the suburbs, the surrounding streets, making sure that's a property that you want to purchase. You know, AI can be used for so many different things in so many different industries, and we're seeing it grow and grow. But in the end, it still comes down to that human touch, and we still need to be doing final checks, doing, you know, inspections. You know, as lawyers, we need to be reviewing the information that it's coming up with and spitting out for us before making sure that, you know, we publish, you know, articles, for example, or we send letters to clients or reviews. It still needs our experience and our skill sets to give that information. So that was, I suppose, a little bit of an overview about how AI is being used, you know, by industries and, you know, in particular in the legal industries. You know, as I said, we don't have currently any legislation specifically that covers it, but we've got another, you know, a few pieces that are being used. But I think as time goes on, we will have, you know, a consolidated piece of legislation that will strictly govern AI, as it is a growing and evolving area. But I suppose I'll open it up now. If anyone's got any questions for either Sacha in terms of, you know, property valuations and how AI is working with them, or myself from the legal point of view. And we're happy to, yeah, if you want to either pop those questions in the chat bar, or feel free to take yourself on mute and we will answer them for you. I'll give you a couple of minutes to see if anything pops up.
We must have covered it well, Kayleigh.
Got someone typing at the moment, so I'll just
do we?
give a moment. Yeah, I'll give a couple of minutes to see if we're going to need. I suppose a question for you, Sacha, while we're waiting for that one is, do you, that's popped up now. What's the typical fee for an AVM? Is that question?
But AVMs are free. Yeah. Basically, the bank's using Cotality, CoreLogic, and that's what you can get on the realestate.com.au. Look up a property and it's got that automated valuation, that automated price estimate. We prefer to call it a price estimate at the bottom. So yeah, we can get those for free these days.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see if there's any other questions. Oh, just a sad face. Okay. And so yeah, my question to you, Sacha, with AI, obviously, you know, they're developing these free property reliant people that are relying on it when they're purchasing properties. Are you seeing many come back to you then and, you know, telling you it was completely wrong and, you know, disgruntled, like wish they had spent a bit of money to get their own valuation and things like that?
So there's 2 points there. Yes, you've definitely got that one where people didn't get a valuation when they purchased, and then they find out. So the fellow who had the non-compliant kitchen, he was in a world of hurt because he's trying to refinance his property. I think he was trying to refinance with a different bank, and now all of a sudden the bank's saying you can't refinance because downstairs, not to building code. And he actually had to spend, I don't know, $10,000, have the kitchen pulled out and I don't think it was much actually, but it was just very inconvenient for him. So that was unfortunate. But the other issue we see with these AVMs is particularly where you've got very rundown, small, dated homes in a suburb, let's say in Sunnybank, because in Sunnybank you've got some $4-5 million homes, but you've also got some really, really small, old, dated houses as well. So we had one where a fellow had said that he'd been relying on the AVM when he went to realestate.com and told him his house was worth, $900,000. But obviously our valuation came back that it wasn't anywhere near that. And he said he'd bought it for a certain amount and that he'd spent $50,000 on a new retaining wall. Well, to be honest with you, a new retaining wall is not going to add the same kind of value as if you had actually renovated or added a bedroom or a bathroom, etc. So it can be a bit of a thorn in our sides at time when those AVMs can be really off the mark, but some people have actually really relied on that information. So yeah, it can make things a bit tricky at times.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, good. And I suppose with your own valuation business, like, do you use AI, in certain parts of the business at all currently?
Yeah, well, I do quite a bit, in the sort of marketing and writing material and posts, etc. Tip sheets, and I do find that some of the values have started using it for going through contracts and specs. So let's say when we're doing a TBE valuation, to be erected, of a new house being built on a vacant block of land, we might receive 300 pages of the land contract and then a building contract, specifications, which the valuer has to go through all of these pages to work out what's the building materials, what are the kitchen appliances, what are the door handle sinks, so it's hours of going through all this information. So I know that some of them are starting to use AI to try and go through these documents and find all of the information that they need. The problem is that we can't rely on it. So even once we find that information, we do have to then carefully go through the contract again to ensure that we've got that right, because our industry is very, very highly regulated. And so any kind of errors are quite often picked up through the different compliance processes that valuers have to adhere to.
I think very good starting point though. Like, I know we've got, project off the plan at the moment. It's like almost a 900-page document. So, trying to pick out some of those things, like you said, the features and that from that is hard. Like, we had a bank, come to us just the other day and said, where's the disclosure plan? Like, can't find it. Like, and obviously you got to point them to it. But, I guess you could have asked AI, where's the disclosure plan, what page number? And, they would have found that way. So definitely a good starting point, because some of those documents can be very confusing when you're seeing them for the first time.
Yeah, they can, and very, very time consuming to get through. No, that's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I don't think we've got any other questions there. I might have a few shy people that don't want to ask in person or put it in the chat bar. So feel free though to reach out to myself or to Sacha, and happy to go through any questions that you've got. And we hope you got some insights today, and we'll hope to hear from you with any questions you've got in the future. But otherwise, good luck with the property purchases. I do think my takeaway from there is make sure you get a proper valuation and that you're actually paying what you think that what you're actually offering for the property is. And it's my takeaway from you, Sacha. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invitation, Kayleigh. Lovely to chat.
Have a good day, everyone.